Right, so if you would have watched the previous video on mood boarding and how we conduct competitor analysis and mood boarding, at the very end of that video, we talked about making a final mood board. We went through it with the client, and yeah, we're going on to the stage now of making a final mood board, which I'll show you now. And then we're going to get into setting the foundations for coming up with logo designs. Now, at this stage, once the mood board's signed off, it can be very easy for you to get ahead of yourself, not think you need to set any foundations. You might already have an idea for a logo design and you want to just jump straight into creating something. But while that's great, you want to have like a board of information that you want to always revisit when coming up with a logo design, because you might have an idea for a logo design, like I say, and you jump in, design this logo, present it to the client doesn't like it. So then you're back to square one and you've not done any of your foundations. So at least if you have a foundation of where you're coming back to, and by foundation I mean keywords, resemblances, meanings of the brand name, what the brand wants to be perceived, writing all this information down on a piece of paper and seeing if you can connect any dots for a possible logo design. So you can see this was the mood board presentation we went through, and we done the competitor analysis. You can see here we can analyse 3 of the competitors, and then we went into the mood boards, which was mood board A, which is, you can see, like this. He liked some styles from this, but then mood board B was the one he was gravitating towards the mostly, which I knew already. This is why I created this mood board, because I kind of knew he'd pick this one. And then we went into mood board C, which was a bit of a wild card. Safe to say he didn't choose anything from this apart from this little thing. He liked this type style for the logo. And then we went into the mood board final, and then this was the final mood board we landed on. As you can see, it's very much like mood board B, just changing a few different elements, and he sent me a really great document back full of feedback. So we've incorporated these ornate serifs. What else did we add new? We added some new textures like this. We brought that type style over from mood board C to put it in here, and everything else pretty much stayed the same. I incorporated this little mark. I liked the idea of motion because it's a video editing studio. This could be cool. But yeah, this was the final mood board we landed on now, and this is what the client signed off on. And now this mood board is what I'm going to be using now to reference going into each of the design stages of this project. I will show you the document the client sent over as well, feedback, and it was awesome. This is why I love working with clients that are really invested in the project, because, you know, they really help, and I don't mean, you know, I don't mean that they're, you know, micromanaging it or anything, but like when it's actually useful feedback, it's amazing, and it's such a pleasure to work with someone like this. So this was the feedback review he sent back. Really excited about these so far. Really like mood board A, but I love mood board B. In the next slides, I'm just picking out the parts I like from it with each thoughts. So he's just going through here and highlighting certain elements from each mood board that he liked, and then you can see here mood board B loved everything apart from this illustration. And then he really liked this part of mood board C, and then he didn't like these parts because we did one revision on the final mood board. I incorporated these. He didn't like these, but he liked these. So then on the second revision, we nailed it with this one. And then he just said a possible idea. He really likes these ornate serifs being incorporated. And then we both agreed upon this. This was like, so we both agreed upon maybe the idea of using keyframes in the logo, you know, video editing, motion design, you know, actually having a look at the interface. What bits are used in After Effects? You know, you've got the timeline, you've got keyframes, back, forward, timers, and all these cool little buttons we could maybe incorporate into the logo design. So that was something we sort of both agreed upon, because I had the idea of that. So when we were on the call, I mentioned about, you know, maybe we could incorporate these, and he loved that idea. So it's, you know, it's trying to see what the client might want and might not want. So yeah, that's always a good idea. So what we're going to do now is, I always start on paper and just jot down a load of things. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring all my notes digitally and organise it a little bit better, so I have a page that I can keep referring back to. So now remember, we still have that briefing document that the client did before we did the mood boarding. And also, if you want mine, I'm giving it away for you for free. Check the description and I'll send a link. I'll give you a link to it, which you can copy into your Notion, into your own Notion portal or whatever. And yeah, we're going to go through that again and pick out any keywords. Like I did this very roughly before the mood boards. We've already got a few keywords in there, like structured, native, as you know, platform. And then for ornate, we've got elaborate, decorated. So we can maybe pull keywords out here from this little bit. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to go through this whole briefing document, pull out any words or phrases that I might think could be useful when we come into the design phase. So I'll be back with you in a second.
Yeah. Don't ask me why again, we tried again and didn't feel the same. The plans was nicking up the diagram. Winter overseas, I got some bags that need acquiring. We used to get cash, the checks bigger so they wire them. Plug talk, fuck the middleman, bring the supplier in from Italy to...
Okay, so I've quickly gone through the brief here, and you know, it's a bit messy. We're just writing down keywords and seeing what we can find. So the main thing I've wrote down is natively. We've talked about what the name actually means, so we can pull keywords out of that, like structured, retention, native, elaborate. And then I've wrote down some keywords like platform, space, inspiring creativity, and power. I like this phrase, ideas to life. How can we visualize that? Achieve purpose. Genuine connections. And then I wrote down clients and creators from the target audience bit, and then that made me realize, which I didn't realize before I read the brief properly, that the target audience is clients and creators. They're two separate audiences. So imagine this as a triangle. Natively ornate's at the top, clients, creators. There's this like love triangle between the three, which obviously talks about partnership. So I think something cool could be created, you know, with this like sort of love triangle between like the target audiences and natively ornate's at the top, like maybe a guide. The natively ornate's guides these. So how can we visualize this? So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to start mind mapping. Now you've probably seen this before, but we're going to pick out some of these keywords, write them down, and see how we can expand on those keywords and see if any other words can come up that we could pull and maybe inspire creativity. And it's not just about word association. It's like, so if we look at ideas to life, because it was talking about bringing ideas to life, how can we visualize ideas to life? How can we visualize flow? How can we visualize simplifying workflows? How can we visualize pushing boundaries? So that's what we're going to do now. We're going to take this and then go to the next page and write it all down.
Globetrotter, so shocker. I keep it in the chrome locker. Don't rock up. I counter it with no offer. I don't wanna.
Okay, so now I've got all my keywords written down. This is my mind map. You can do mind maps by sprouting out, but I found it easier like this because you can fit more words in. Okay, so the main keywords I chose were platform, guide, flow, partnership, Adobe After Effects workflow, ornate, ideas to life, purpose, pushing boundaries. So you can see here with the Adobe After Effects workflow, something we agreed on was maybe using keywords from this. So you've got keyframes, timelines, play button, layers, arrows, lines, anchor points, align layers, links, parent link, motion blur, perspective, 3D camera. So these are all things we could maybe incorporate into this mark. And then you've got things like platform, base, grid, square, composition, aspect ratio. So these are more of a feeling. How's this logo going to look? Partnership, entwined, connection together, link, swirls, serif, fine details, ideas to life, sprouted, emerge, growing, spark. So now that I've got sort of all this kind of information here in front of me, all things we can use before we get into the creation, I'm going to put these now into, I'm going to quickly write all these up digitally, so I always have a canvas with all this information on, because my handwriting's not that neat and it's quite hard to read. So I'm going to put it all up I'm just going to quickly make an illustrated document and basically rewrite all this on there so I have it all and I can keep revisiting it.
Back used to be up against walls, it's on the ropes now. Fighting for that feeling we had in your Laredo. Back when you saw the thorns on my crown more like a halo. My conscience punished me for the past while I was out there trying to ball. Bet you seen through the mask.
Okay, so now I've put all this into an illustrated document. So you can see I've got all my keywords here. Just a little idea I had here. So I'll leave it a little bit of space in case I want to add anything else later down. But at the minute I've got the core foundation down here. So I've got all my keywords and I've just highlighted which ones I think that are standing out to me, what I think I can do something with. So, you know, you get connection, link, shape points, keyframes, timelines, layers. Now that I've got this in front of me on the screen, I'm going to get a new page like this. Now, this is not starting the logo design. What I'm doing now is looking at what I've got highlighted up here. And then what I'm doing is I'm reading these keywords and I'm going to visualize the keywords. So I'm going to start to draw little shapes, little things, see if anything starts to connect. And yeah, like I say, these aren't logo designs. These aren't concepts. These are nothing. This is just literally getting words on a screen down into visuals on paper. You know, so for example, what does a keyframe look like? Well, a keyframe typically looks something like this. It's just a sort of square. And then let's look at, you know, and then what does a timeline look like? You know, we're just going to do layers like this. Timeline typically looks something like this. Could we formulate this sort of pattern? Equal spacing, then maybe, you know, multiple keyframes on a timeline. You know, kind of looks like a face here. So we're just seeing what we can, we're just like visualizing these keywords, you know, when we look at, you know, perfect connections. I've got perfect connections, interlocking shapes. So, you know, we could even do keyframes sort of interlocking like this. Could something happen here? You know, we've got these two keyframes interlocking here. And then, you know, we've got this idea of, you know, we've got this idea of a triangle where it's natively ornate up here. And then we've got the clients and we've got creators. So how can we create, we could maybe, you know, merge keyframes in a triangle pattern like this. Although I think that's just made the Mitsubishi logo. Yeah. So like how can we, you know, maybe have keyframe, sorry, the sketching's horrendous. Keyframe here. So like so we're just basically visualizing things on this screen, you know. I've just drawn a few more examples here of taking stuff off there, visualizing the keywords I've got on here. Now these are just really rough, just getting stuff out your head, seeing what can come up, see if you can start to make any connections, if any ideas start to sprout from these. Now this is only a few I've done. These are sketches you never ever show the client, because the client would be mortified if you showed them this, because it doesn't mean anything. The part about being a designer is just making connections in these early stages. You just want to try and get as much brain junk out of your head and see where you can go. Now, obviously, this is just me quickly, roughly doing a few for the video. I'm going to spend a lot of time now off camera, really, and getting into the zone of trying to come up with things and seeing what can connect and things like that. But this is how you set the foundations for coming up with a logo design. You want to, you know, go through the brief, go through loads of keywords, visualize keywords, see if anything starts to come up. Even visualize not just keywords, but phrases from the brief, you know, like ideas to life, pushing boundaries. How can we visualize these words and then just sketch whatever comes to your head and see if you can start to formulate, you know, you might sketch down one idea and then sketch down another idea and see how those two sketches, maybe we could merge them and how they could connect. But this is typically how I start. So, you know, go through the brief, keywords, looking for keywords, really looking into that brief. We're writing down as much information as possible. Doesn't matter how bad it is, doesn't matter how rough it is. We just want to get it all down on paper. We want to get all our ideas down on paper and then have a board like this that we can keep coming back to in case we need to. So, yeah. So in the next video I show you, I will have probably come up with a logo design, but like I say, that won't be for another week. That won't be for a couple of weeks yet, because I really need to spend some time on this to formulate a design that I can present to the client, and obviously I need to present it to the client before I show it on YouTube. But yeah, that is typically how we do it. So I really hope you can take something away from this video. There's no right or wrong way to do this. You've just got to get messy. This is what design's about in the first part. That beautiful mark that we see at the end has so much research and sketching and messiness behind it, and terrible ideas until we land on something beautiful. And that's what logo design is, and that's why I love it. So yeah, I hope you can take something away from this video, I really do. And if you have any questions, just let me know in the comments and I'll answer them as best as I can. But yeah, I'll see you next week.